2015. 15-year-old Jessica Martinez was doing homework in her bedroom when she heard her parents screaming downstairs. But they weren't fighting with each other. They were on the phone with her school counselor, and Jessica could hear every word of the conversation that was about to destroy her family forever. "What do you mean she told you she's gay?" Her father, Roberto, was shouting into the phone. "That's impossible. We raised her in the church. We taught her right from wrong. There must be some mistake." Jessica's heart stopped. 3 weeks earlier, she had finally found the courage to confide in her school counselor about her sexuality, seeking support and guidance during the most confusing time of her teenage life. She had trusted that conversation would remain private, but apparently the counselor had decided to contact her parents without her consent. Within minutes, Jessica heard her parents' footsteps thundering up the stairs toward her room. When Roberto and Maria Martinez burst through her bedroom door, their faces were filled with rage and disgust that Jessica had never seen before. Not directed at her, not from the parents who had supposedly loved her unconditionally for 15 years. "Is it true?" Maria demanded, tears of anger streaming down her face. "Are you gay?" Jessica's world crumbled in that moment. She had spent months building up the courage to eventually tell her parents about her sexuality, hoping they would accept and support her. But the way they were looking at her, like she was something diseased and shameful, told her everything she needed to know about how this conversation was going to end. "Mom, Dad, I can explain, Jessica began, but Roberto cut her off with words that would haunt her for the next 8 years. "You have a choice, Jessica. You can get on your knees right now and pray to God to cure you of this sickness. Promise us you'll never speak of this again, and live like a normal daughter should. Or you can pack your things and get out of our house tonight. We will not have a gay daughter destroying our family's reputation and bringing shame on our name." The ultimatum was delivered with cold finality. Jessica's parents weren't interested in discussion, counseling, or gradual acceptance. They wanted immediate compliance or immediate departure. There was no middle ground, no time to process, and no room for the love that had supposedly existed between parents and daughter for 15 years. Jessica Martinez had exactly 2 hours to choose between denying her identity or becoming homeless. The decision she made that night would set her on a path that would ultimately make her one of the youngest self-made millionaires in America, but first, she would have to survive being abandoned by everyone she had ever trusted. Before that devastating November night, Jessica Martinez had been the ideal daughter in every way that mattered to her conservative Mexican-American family. She was an honor student, active in their Catholic church, fluent in both English and Spanish, and destined for the college education that would make her the first in their family to earn a degree. Roberto Martinez worked as a foreman at a construction company, while Maria cleaned houses for wealthy families in their San Diego suburb. They had immigrated from Mexico when Jessica was 3 years old, and they had built their American dream around success they expected their brilliant daughter to achieve. Jessica excelled at everything she attempted. She had a 4.0 GPA, played varsity soccer, volunteered at the church's youth programs, and had already been accepted to several prestigious universities with partial scholarships. Her parents bragged about her to everyone in their community, seeing her achievements as validation of their sacrifices and proof that their family belonged in America. "Jessica is going to be a doctor or a lawyer." Roberto would tell anyone who would listen. "She's going to have the life we never could, and she's going to make our family proud." But Jessica's perfect exterior hid the internal struggle she had been facing since middle school. As early as age 12, Jessica had realized that she was attracted to girls in ways that felt natural to her, but that she knew would be considered sinful and shameful by her family's religious beliefs. She had spent 3 years trying to convince herself that her feelings were just a phase, that she could pray them away, or that she could simply ignore her sexuality and live the heterosexual life her parents expected. Jessica dated boys throughout high school, trying desperately to feel the romantic connection that seemed to come so easily to her classmates. But the harder Jessica tried to force herself into the mold of the perfect Catholic daughter, the more isolated and depressed she became. By age 15, she was having panic attacks, struggling with insomnia, and feeling like she was living a lie every single day. The school counselor, Mrs. Patricia Hernandez, had noticed Jessica's declining mental health and had gently encouraged her to talk about what was causing her anxiety. In a moment of desperation and trust, Jessica had finally confided the truth about her sexuality, hoping to find support and guidance about how to navigate her identity in a family that would never accept it. "I know my parents will never understand," Jessica had told Mrs. Hernandez during their confidential conversation. "But I can't keep pretending to be someone I'm not. It's killing me inside." Mrs. Hernandez had promised Jessica that their conversation was private, but apparently she had decided that Jessica's parents needed to know about their daughter's problem so they could seek appropriate religious counseling. The counselor's betrayal of Jessica's trust would trigger the confrontation that destroyed her family and left her homeless at 15. Looking back, Jessica would realize that she had been naive to expect acceptance from parents whose entire worldview was built around traditional gender roles and religious conservatism. But at 15, she had still believed that parental love was supposed to be unconditional, and that her family would find a way to accept her as she was. The night of November 14th, 2015, would teach Jessica that some parents' love comes with conditions that can never be met, and that family loyalty only extends as far as conformity to expectations. Jessica's choice between her identity and her family would define everything that came next in her life. But the courage she found in that moment of ultimate rejection would become the foundation for success beyond anything her parents could have imagined for their perfect daughter. When Roberto Martinez gave Jessica the ultimatum between denial and homelessness, she spent exactly 47 minutes sitting on her bedroom floor, weighing her options and trying to imagine a future that didn't seem to exist. Jessica could have chosen a lie. She could have gotten on her knees, prayed to be cured, promised to date boys, and kept her sexuality secret for 3 years until she could leave for college. It would have meant living in constant fear of discovery and continuing to pretend to be someone she wasn't, but it would have preserved her relationships, her education funding, and her path to the successful future her parents had planned for her. But something inside Jessica's 15-year-old heart rebelled against the idea of spending the rest of her adolescence denying the truth about who she was. She had tried for 3 years to change or hide her sexuality, and the effort had nearly destroyed her mental health. The thought of 3 more years of that internal torture felt impossible to endure. "I can't do it," Jessica whispered to herself as she looked around the bedroom that had been her safe space for 12 years. "I can't pretend to be someone else just to make them comfortable with loving me." Jessica began packing her belongings into 2 suitcases and a backpack, taking only the essentials she could carry. She had $347 in savings from her part-time job at a local restaurant, no driver's license, no credit cards, and no relatives who would defy her parents by helping her. As Jessica packed, she could hear her parents in the living room, alternating between furious Spanish conversations and phone calls to their priest, seeking guidance about how to handle their crisis. She heard words like vergüenza, shame, pecados, and castigo de Dios, punishment from God, repeated over and over. When Jessica finally walked downstairs with her suitcases at 11:30 p.m., her parents were waiting by the front door. Maria was crying, but her tears seemed to be for the embarrassment Jessica was causing rather than sadness about losing her daughter. "This is your choice," Roberto said coldly. "You're choosing to destroy this family. You're choosing to throw away everything we've built for you. Don't come back here until you're ready to be our daughter again." "I am your daughter," Jessica replied, her voice breaking. "I'm the same person I was this morning. The only thing that's changed is that you know the truth about who I am." Maria's response was devastating. "The daughter we raised would never choose to be gay. You're not our Jessica anymore. You're someone else, and we don't know who you are." Jessica walked out of her childhood home at 11:47 p.m. on November 14th, 2015, carrying everything she owned and nowhere to go. She had chosen her authentic identity over her family's love, but in that moment, she had no idea if she would survive the consequences of that choice. Jessica's first night as a homeless teenager would be the longest of her life, but it would also be the night she discovered a strength she never knew she possessed. The girl who had been thrown away by her family was about to prove she was far from worthless. Jessica's first night homeless was spent on a bench in Balboa Park, shivering in the November cold and trying to process the reality that her family was gone forever. She had never been away from home alone overnight, never had to worry about where she would sleep or what she would eat, and never imagined that the parents who had supposedly loved her could cut her off so completely. But even in her devastation, Jessica was already beginning to make plans. She had 3 years of high school left to complete, college applications to submit, and a future to build without any support system. Instead of wallowing in self-pity, Jessica spent that first night making lists of what she needed to do to survive and eventually thrive. The next morning, Jessica went directly to her high school and met with the principal, Mrs. Rodriguez, to explain her situation. Mrs. Rodriguez was horrified to learn that a straight-A student had been made homeless because of her sexuality, and she immediately began connecting Jessica with resources for displaced teenagers. "Jessica, what happened to you is not your fault, and you don't deserve to be punished for being honest about who you are," Mrs. Rodriguez told her. "We're going to make sure you can continue your education and graduate with your class." Mrs. Rodriguez helped Jessica apply for emergency housing assistance, food stamps, and legal emancipation from her parents so she could make decisions about her own education and medical care. She also arranged for Jessica to meet with other LGBTQ students who could provide peer support and guidance about navigating high school while dealing with family rejection. Jessica moved into a transitional housing facility for homeless teenagers, sharing a room with 3 other girls who had been kicked out of their homes for various reasons. The facility provided basic shelter and meals, but residents were required to follow strict rules about curfews, chores, and behavior that felt institutional and dehumanizing. "I felt like I was being punished for something that wasn't wrong," Jessica would later recall. Living in that facility was better than being on the streets, but it was a constant reminder that I had been rejected by the people who were supposed to love me no matter what. The hardest part of Jessica's new reality was the isolation. Her former friends at school didn't know how to relate to her anymore, and many of them had parents who forbade them from associating with a gay girl who had been kicked out of her home. Jessica went from being popular and socially connected to being virtually alone except for a few supportive teachers and counselors. But Jessica's academic performance never suffered. If anything, her grades improved as she channeled her pain and anger into academic achievement that would prove her worth to herself if not to her family. She studied with fierce determination, knowing that education was her only path to independence and success. By the end of her sophomore year, Jessica had earned a perfect 4.0 GPA while living in transitional housing, working part-time at a local coffee shop, and dealing with depression and anxiety that would have derailed most teenagers. Her resilience and determination caught the attention of several teachers who began to see Jessica not as a victim, but as a young woman with extraordinary potential. Jessica's junior year of high school would bring opportunities that would change her life trajectory forever. But first, she would have to overcome the trauma of family rejection and learn to believe in herself when no one else would. During the summer between sophomore and junior year, Jessica was selected for a prestigious internship program designed to give economically disadvantaged students exposure to business and entrepreneurship. The program was specifically seeking students who had overcome significant obstacles, and Jessica's story of academic success despite homelessness made her an ideal candidate. The internship placed Jessica at a small tech startup in downtown San Diego, where she worked as an assistant to the marketing team while learning about business operations, digital marketing, and startup culture. For the first time since being kicked out of her home, Jessica found herself in an environment where her intelligence and work ethic were valued without judgment about her personal life. "Jessica was incredible," said Marcus Thompson, the startup's founder and Jessica's mentor during the internship. "She had this hunger to learn and succeed that I'd never seen in someone so young. She would stay after hours to master new software, ask questions that showed she was thinking strategically about our business, and come up with ideas that were genuinely innovative." The internship exposed Jessica to the world of digital marketing and e-commerce at a time when social media marketing was exploding but still accessible to small operators. Jessica became fascinated by the possibility of building online businesses that could generate significant revenue with relatively low startup costs. "I realized that the internet was the ultimate equalizer," Jessica would later explain. "It didn't matter that I was homeless or that my family had rejected me. Online, I could build something valuable based purely on my ideas and work ethic." During her senior year of high school, Jessica began developing her own small online business while living in transitional housing and maintaining her perfect grades. She started by offering social media marketing services to small local businesses, using skills she had learned during her internship and equipment she could access at school. Jessica's business grew slowly but consistently. She reinvested every dollar profit into better equipment, marketing courses, and expanding her services. By graduation, she was earning more from her online business than from her part-time job, and she had saved enough money to rent a small studio apartment and become truly independent for the first time. The question of college had been complicated for Jessica. She had been accepted to several universities with partial scholarships, but she couldn't afford the remaining costs and had no family to co-sign loans or provide financial support. More importantly, her business was growing rapidly, and Jessica was torn between pursuing traditional higher education and focusing on the entrepreneurial path that was already generating significant income. I had to choose between the college education my parents had always expected me to get and the business opportunity that could give me real financial independence. Jessica reflected. It was scary to turn down college, but I knew I was onto something special with my business. Jessica made the difficult decision to defer college and focus full-time on her online marketing company. It was a risk that could have left her with neither a degree nor a successful business, but Jessica's confidence in her abilities had been built through 3 years of surviving on her own and proving her worth through achievement rather than approval. Jessica's decision to skip college and build her business would either vindicate her faith in herself or leave her with nothing to show for rejecting traditional success. But the girl who had been thrown away at 15 was about to prove that sometimes the biggest risks lead to the most extraordinary rewards. Between ages 18 and 21, Jessica built her digital marketing company from a one-person operation to a team of 12 employees serving clients across the United States. Her company specialized in helping small businesses develop comprehensive online marketing strategies, and Jessica's combination of technical skill and strategic thinking made her services extremely valuable in the rapidly evolving digital marketplace. Jessica's success was built on her understanding of social media platforms, search engine optimization, and content marketing strategies that were still considered cutting edge by many established marketing firms. But her real advantage was her work ethic. Jessica regularly worked 16-hour days, took on projects that other marketers considered too challenging, and delivered results that exceeded her clients' expectations. Jessica was relentless, said David Kim, one of her early employees. While other people our age were partying or sleeping in, Jessica was up at 5 a.m. analyzing marketing data and developing new strategies for clients. She had this drive that came from knowing she couldn't afford to fail. By age 21, Jessica's company was generating over $2 million in annual revenue, and she had been featured in several business magazines as one of the youngest successful entrepreneurs in the digital marketing industry. She had purchased a beautiful home in one of San Diego's most desirable neighborhoods, owned luxury cars, and had built the kind of wealth that most people don't achieve until their 40s or 50s. But Jessica's financial success couldn't completely heal the emotional wounds left by her family's rejection. Despite her achievements, she still struggled with feelings of worthlessness and abandonment that stemmed from being thrown away by the people who were supposed to love her unconditionally. "I was successful by every external measure," Jessica admitted, "but I still felt like that 15-year-old girl standing on her parents' doorstep with suitcases, wondering if she was worth loving. Success didn't automatically fix the damage that rejection had done to my heart." Jessica had tried several times over the years to reconnect with her parents, sending them letters about her achievements and hoping they would be proud of what she had accomplished. But Roberto and Maria Martinez had never responded to Jessica's attempts at communication, apparently committed to treating their daughter as if she had died the night she walked out of their house. The silence from her family was particularly painful during major milestones in Jessica's life. When she bought her first house at age 20, when she was featured on the cover of Entrepreneur magazine at age 22, when she spoke at major business conferences about her success story, there was no one from her original family to share these moments with her. Jessica had built a chosen family of close friends, mentors, and employees who supported and celebrated her achievements. But the absence of her parents' approval remained a source of deep pain that no amount of professional success could completely heal. Jessica's decision to return to her hometown after 8 years would force her to confront the parents who had thrown her away and show them exactly what their worthless daughter had become. But the reunion she had dreamed about for years would unfold in ways she never could have imagined. In November 2023, Exactly 8 years after being forced to leave home, Jessica Martinez returned to her childhood neighborhood as a 23-year-old millionaire CEO. But she wasn't returning to gloat or seek revenge. She was returning because her company had been contracted to provide marketing services for a major development project that would transform her old community. Jessica's company had been hired to develop the marketing campaign for a new community center that would provide services for at-risk teenagers, including homeless LGBTQ youth who had been rejected by their families. The irony of the situation was not lost on Jessica. She was now successful enough to help provide services she could have used 8 years earlier. As part of the project, Jessica was required to attend community meetings where local residents could learn about the new facility and provide input about the services it would offer. Jessica knew there was a chance her parents would attend these meetings, but she was unprepared for the emotional impact of seeing them for the first time in 8 years. Roberto and Maria Martinez had aged significantly since Jessica last saw them. Roberto's hair was completely gray, and Maria looked smaller and more fragile than Jessica remembered. But what struck Jessica most was how ordinary they seemed, not the larger-than-life figures who had dominated her childhood memories, but just two middle-aged people living quiet lives in the same small community where they had raised their daughter. When Roberto saw Jessica at the community meeting, his reaction was immediate shock, followed by something that looked like pride mixed with regret. Maria began crying the moment she recognized her daughter, but she made no move to approach or speak to Jessica. After the meeting, Roberto finally approached Jessica in the parking lot. "Jessica," he said quietly, "we heard about your success. We've seen the articles about your company. You've been following my career?" Jessica asked, surprised that her parents had been aware of her achievements despite their years of silence. "Of course we have," Roberto admitted. "You're our daughter. We never stopped caring about what happened to you." The conversation that followed was awkward and painful, but it was the first real communication between Jessica and her parents since the night they had thrown her out. Roberto and Maria acknowledged that they had made mistakes, but they struggled to take full responsibility for the pain they had caused their daughter. "We thought we were doing what was right," Maria explained through tears. "The church told us that accepting your lifestyle would be enabling sin. We thought tough love would help you change." Jessica's response was firm but not cruel. "You didn't show me tough love. You showed me conditional love. You taught me that your acceptance was based on me being who you wanted me to be, not who I actually was." The reunion Jessica had dreamed about for years was neither the vindictive confrontation nor the tearful reconciliation she had imagined. Instead, it was a complicated conversation between three adults who had been shaped by trauma, regret, and years of separation. Jessica's reunion with her parents in November 2023 marked the beginning of a slow, complicated process of rebuilding a relationship that had been destroyed by fear, religious dogma, and misunderstanding. Neither Jessica nor her parents were the same people they had been 8 years earlier, and they had to navigate the challenge of getting to know each other as adults while processing the trauma of their long separation. Roberto and Maria Martinez had spent 8 years living with the consequences of their decision to choose their religious beliefs over their daughter. They had watched other families in their community successfully navigate similar situations with love and acceptance, and they had gradually realized that their rigid approach had cost them the relationship with the child they loved most. "We lost 8 years with our daughter because we listened to fear instead of love," Maria admitted during one of their difficult but necessary conversations. "We thought we were protecting our family's reputation, but we destroyed our family instead." Jessica appreciated her parents' acknowledgement of their mistakes, but she was clear that rebuilding their relationship would require more than apologies. She needed her parents to demonstrate that they truly accepted her sexuality and understood that their rejection had caused lasting damage that couldn't be erased overnight. "I'm not the same person I was at 15, Jessica told her parents. "I've built a life and an identity that doesn't require your approval. If you want to be part of my life now, it has to be because you love and accept who I actually am, not because you're proud of what I've achieved." The process of reconciliation was complicated by the fact that Jessica's success had made the family dynamics more complex. Roberto and Maria were proud of their daughter's achievements, but they also struggled with guilt about not being present to support her during the years when she was building her business and overcoming homelessness. Jessica began inviting her parents to important events in her life and business, But she set clear boundaries about topics that were off-limits and behaviors she wouldn't tolerate. She required her parents to attend family counseling sessions and to educate themselves about LGBTQ issues, so they could better understand their daughter's experiences. I needed them to do the work of learning and growing, not just expect me to forgive and forget, Jessica explained. Real reconciliation required them to change, not just regret their past actions. The community center project that had brought Jessica back to her hometown became a symbol of her transformation from rejected teenager to successful advocate. The facility, which opened in 2024, provides services specifically for LGBTQ youth who have been displaced from their homes, and Jessica established a scholarship program that helps these young people pursue education and entrepreneurship opportunities. I want to make sure that other kids in situations like mine would have resources and support that I didn't have access to, Jessica said during the center's opening ceremony. No teenager should have to choose between their identity and their family, but if they're forced to make that choice, they shouldn't have to face it alone. Jessica's parents attended the community center's grand opening, and Roberto gave a speech acknowledging his family's mistakes and encouraging other parents to choose love over fear when their children reveal difficult truths about themselves. 8 years ago, I thought I was protecting my family by rejecting my daughter, Roberto told the audience. Instead, I lost the most important relationship in my life and caused pain that will take years to heal. I hope other families can learn from our mistakes and choose acceptance over judgment. Jessica and her parents continue to work on rebuilding their relationship, which may never fully recover from the damage caused by 8 years of separation and rejection. But Jessica's story has become an inspiration for other LGBTQ youth who face family rejection, proving that success and happiness are possible even when biological families fail to provide love and support. Jessica Martinez is now 24 years old and the CEO of a company valued at over $50 million. She has been married to her wife, Sarah, for 2 years, and her parents attended the wedding, a milestone that once seemed impossible for all of them. I learned that family isn't just about biology, Jessica reflects. It's about the people who choose to love and support you, especially when that love requires them to grow and change. Some families are born and some families are built. Jessica's journey from homeless teenager to successful entrepreneur proves that being rejected by the people who are supposed to love you unconditionally doesn't define your worth or limit your potential. Sometimes the greatest success comes from refusing to let other people's limitations become your own. If Jessica's story has moved you and reminded you of the incredible resilience of the human spirit, please take a moment to like this video and share it with someone who might need to hear this message of hope and possibility. Subscribe to our channel for more stories of people who overcame impossible odds to create extraordinary lives. And let us know in the comments if you have your own story of triumph over rejection and adversity. Remember, your current circumstances don't determine your future possibilities. Sometimes being forced to leave is actually being freed to become who you were always meant to be.